welcome to another episode of A Shot at Bliss.
This is Yadi.
And Melly.
And today's topic will be Convo hiccups.
Yes. A little background. Yadi and me are both bilingual.
Yes.
Maybe even trilingual.
Maybe. We're learning.
It's like a stretch. So our first language was Spanish, right?
Right.
And our, second language we learned in school, and that was English. Mm-hmm. And in our 20s, we're learning Italian.
And here, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I also tried learning Farsi.
I
tried learning French. I tried learning all kinds of languages. And you know what? I feel like I'm really good at learning them.
No way.
Yeah,
that's good.
I really do think so. And I always tell my husband, you know what? Actually, I just recently told him this year, I was like, each year I'm going to learn a new language.
Wow, that is awesome.
But I haven't really kept up with it. I do have the the app Duolingo.
Yeah, that's the same one I use.
Right, which I go on it and do some work. Some exercises and stuff. But I really want to keep up with it because I feel like it's really awesome to be able to communicate with people around the world,
Yeah.
And it's just, I find it amazing.
You know, the reason I'm learning Italian is just because I want to go to Italy and eat pizza.
There
and
you
I want to be able to order it right.
I hope you have that down.
Yeah, I know. I don't know how far I am. Yeah, I don't think so.
All right.
I think I could just order the beef one.
The beef one.
Yeah.
That is so funny. Maybe just the cheese one.
Yeah. The formaggio.
The formaggio. Oh, man. So, yeah.
It's fun to learn languages.
It is.
And it's a really good thing to learn languages. It's really fun and maybe even easier to learn if you're doing it with somebody because then you can practice it.
Yep.
For us, it has its positives and then it has its negatives. Mm-hmm. So positives is obviously you get to conversate more with people. Mm-hmm. But then the negative would be like...
feeling like we don't have enough words in our vocabulary for both languages.
Yes, and it's kind of like, okay, my brain has this much space. And I've learned...
Split it between both languages?
Yes, and like a computer memory. Yeah. Computer memory has like this much space, and school made me learn like 3/4 of it is English, and then 1/4 of it is left for like Spanish. And the more I learn in English, like the lesser is in Spanish.
Oh my gosh, how funny.
And that's why I feel like my vocabulary isn't expanding because there's only like a limited amount of memory, which is so bad. I feel like to think of that way because it shouldn't be like your brain can expand.
Definitely it can.
Your memory can expand, and it's just, but that's kind of how I felt like as a kid growing up and learning 2 languages, and it's a hard transition to switch it. I don't know, how was it for you?
Well, I mean, if you think about it, your memory, not that it expands, but it has like storage room, right?
Yeah.
And it's like if you don't use certain words, or if
That's
you don't,
right.
Yeah, or if you don't, exercise it or practice it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it just kind of is left in the back burner.
And then you end up forgetting about it.
Yeah.
And you lose words instead of
right. Until it's brought up again, years later, and you're like, oh wait, that sounds so familiar. But it's not like you can actually physically dig into your, brain and
filing cabinets.
Yeah. How awesome would it be that we could actually do that?
I feel like my brain would be so organized.
Yeah. So I think that's how brain works. But I think that you really did define it very well because that's how it feels for me too. So my first language was also Spanish, and I did speak English with my mom. So I think I want to say I probably learned both around the same time, but I spoke Spanish better because I spoke it with my dad.
Okay.
And I spoke it with my grandparents.
Yeah.
And I spoke it with, all my aunts and uncles. But I also spoke English with my mom. But even then, I still feel like it was,
wow, so you're like a bilingual by birth.
By birth.
Yeah.
I still think like it was difficult for me because I felt like I was never able to express myself in one language or the other.
Yeah, neither one of them would help out. It was both of them in use that would work. Yeah. But it was never just one.
Yes.
You would always forget words. Or you don't know the correct way of saying something in that language.
Yeah. And it wasn't really if I was in school, I can, talk to you. I mean, I knew how to speak both languages, right?
But it wouldn't always come out the way you wanted it to.
Exactly. Yes. Or you know what? I wouldn't even try. When it came to expressing my feelings, see, with schoolwork, work and everything that had to do with school, like I was okay.
Yeah.
But when it came to like, you know, talking to someone about, you know, my feelings or what you did, you know, at home or whatever, like, you know, deeper conversations other than school, I just felt like it was always just kind of hard for me to find friends that only spoke English or friends that only spoke Spanish, because I felt like I needed to have friends that spoke both, because that's what I was used to.
And yeah, I think, my whole childhood was, with friends that spoke both.
Yeah.
It just made it easier to conversate with them.
It was easier. And I mean, I've had friends, you know, that only spoke one language. Well, that only spoke English, of course, right? My childhood friend, she speaks English only.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, but I was just really comfortable with her. You know, I met her when she was like 3. So.
Oh, yeah. That totally reminds me of a funny story about me. So I had a friend when I was 2 or 3 years old. She was my neighbor. Mm-hmm. So the funny part is, at that age, I only spoke Spanish. I never really heard English. And this little neighbor friend of mine, she only spoke English. And we would hang out all the time.
That's so cute.
And I would talk to her like if she could understand me, and she would talk to me like I could understand her, but we totally didn't.
So you
we
would
would
point.
Yeah.
Stuff.
Yeah, you just use pointing. Like, it was just crazy. But I don't know how that friendship worked, but it worked.
Hey, you make it work.
Yeah.
You gotta make it work. That is so cute. Yeah. So, I mean, that's how we all start off, kind of, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's how I felt. Like, and then I would go to Mexico a lot to visit my family during summer vacations.
Okay.
And I felt like I couldn't, I mean, I love my cousins and we are very, you know, like close.
Yeah.
But I just couldn't get myself to have like an actual natural conversation with them.
I know the feeling.
Because I couldn't express myself the way I wanted to. So everything just kind of came out like so basic.
Yeah.
And it was terrible.
Exactly. That's how it feels, basic. Like, you're using the minimum words.
Yeah. And I remember like we would play like board games and, you know, I would read the instructions and then my cousin, she would be like, let me read it because let me read it. And I'm like,
she'd just get frustrated with you.
And I'd be like, I tried. But check this out. Like, I didn't feel like 100% comfortable until I was in high school.
Okay.
Yeah. So all throughout like elementary school and all throughout middle school, I just felt like I needed to have that, like, you know, those bilingual friends.
Yeah. Again, because it makes it easier.
Yeah. And then in high school, I just kind of finally spread my wings. That's how I felt, you know? And, you know, like, it just kind of became so natural and it was just, I don't know. I mean, it was okay, right? It's always been okay. Just I never really tried.
Wait, so which way did you go? Did you have more friends that...
English speakers.
Because
regardless of my basic vocabulary for both languages, I felt like I could still express myself better in English.
It was just all the schooling, right?
Yeah, all the schooling. I mean, for the most part, when I would speak with my bilingual friends, like when we would talk, we would throw in some Spanish, but it was always mostly English.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how it was. Do you feel the same way?
I actually was going to say, it isn't until you have a conversation with someone that only speaks Spanish or only speaks English that you realize how bad your language is. And mostly for us, I'm assuming, with Spanish, because we didn't practice it as often. Or we did practice it, but we were limited to what we were taught from our parents or our families.
Yeah.
Instead of like schooling wise.
Mm-hmm. No, and that's so true, because I remember taking like Spanish for native speakers. And then I took AP Spanish and girl, I was lost.
And all of a sudden you learned about estacionamiento instead of parking lot. Like
instead of parqueadero.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or like, I still don't even know how to say lonchar.
I know. I don't.
Like merienda or something?
No, it gets so confusing. It's like desayuno, almuerzo. I think almuerzo is lunch.
Oh, and then there's merienda. No.
I don't even know. I think that's a snack.
I don't know. Maybe. You're right. Yeah, it could be. So, you know, it's still like we weren't taught like
the proper words.
Yeah. But hey, I mean, I could read it, I could write it, I could
understand it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's better than
I think
not knowing
being bilingual is a good thing.
Yes.
It just has more challenges.
It does have more challenges.
And it's important to try to keep studying or try to keep learning, try to keep practicing.
Yep. It ties in
all the languages.
Yeah, all the languages, any language you want to learn, or especially if it's your culture language, really.
Yeah.
Like
especially.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to lose that.
No, you don't want to lose it, and that brings in the subject as to
that brings in your kids.
That brings in my kids
because it's the next generation of your culture.
Yeah. So that's funny because check this out. I have a 6-year-old daughter and a 4-year-old son, and they don't speak Spanish.
They don't? I think I've been talking to her in Spanish.
They understand it.
Oh, okay.
And Catalina, she knows words. And she, now that she's, 6 and she's getting older, like she will answer like in Spanish sometimes, like she will, instead of saying yes, she'll say mande.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm like, hey, we're getting somewhere, right?
Yeah.
But I honestly didn't enforce it with them. And the reason I didn't was because I was always so confused, growing up.
And you started at a way younger age.
Yeah. I started, at a way younger age. But like I said, I felt like I could never express myself in one language or another. And I didn't want the same for my kids. Yeah. And I just wanted them to be so confident in their speech,
and in themselves.
And in themselves to be able to express themselves completely, whether it's in English or Spanish. Yeah. But it just turned out to be English because, well, that's what we speak at home, right? With my husband. My husband is also bilingual, but he's just like us, first generation Americans,
the first thing that pops in your head is English.
Yeah. So that's what my kids learned. And like I said, they understand Spanish completely. Everything. It's so funny because it's amazing to see, how their brain works. Like they understand it to the T. But they just don't speak it.
Yeah, because it's so much harder. It's so easy to understand another language than it is to speak it, because all of a sudden you have to choose the correct words that go together, and that is a little bit more it's harder. It's more
challenging.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, like I strongly believe that kids are so smart. They're sponges. They can grasp everything and everything you throw their way. Even if you don't throw it, man, they'll grasp it and they'll remember it.
Yeah.
And you didn't even tell them, right?
Or you don't remember telling them.
No. So don't get me wrong. Like I believe that if I were to sit down with them and taught them Spanish, like say 3 days out of the week or even twice out of the week, and I believe that they would learn it.
They would catch on.
Yeah, they would definitely catch on. But, it just didn't turn out that way for us. Like I don't really sit down with them and, teach them Spanish, but I'm sure they'll learn it. Like I said, my daughter is already, she's catching on to words, and, she says sentences too. And she feels really happy too when she answers in Spanish. She's like, "Ma, did you hear that?"
Oh, that's good.
And I'm like, "Yes, I heard that, girl. You so good." So yeah, I mean, that's that. I know like my parents and my in-laws gave me a hard time for a while. Mostly my in-laws, because, you got to teach them Spanish. And I totally get it. Because I always said, my kids are going to speak both languages.
Yeah.
But I'm not really in a rush.
It didn't happen.
No.
Or at least not yet.
Yeah. I'm not in a rush because I know, just like us, that they will know it and learn it and understand it. But at least they'll be confident in one language. Okay. Opposed to being so basic in both.
Yeah, which is definitely something to consider because it is a challenge that comes with being bilingual. I have talked to my boyfriend about this topic too. Yeah. And even though we don't have kids and we're obviously not married yet, we talk about it, and we said that we would want our kids to be bilingual. And I think we say this easily, but we don't comprehend how difficult that is. Yeah. Because at least for me, when I was growing up, the only language I heard was Spanish, and the only language I was taught was Spanish. But learning 2 languages at the same time, that's interesting. Yeah. And even like when we say that we want our kids to be bilingual and be taught both, I think it's easier to be bilingual if when you're little, you learn one language first and then you learn a different one. Because then you lose that confusion of like, it just, I feel like, yeah, baby learns or absorbs everything, but you also don't want to like complicate it, Yeah. And maybe one of those ways is keeping it simple by teaching them one language first. And so we said, because we both did it this way, where we both learned Spanish only in the beginning, we said we wanted to do that. So we would supposedly practice. Yeah. And we would try to say, okay, today we're only going to conversate in Spanish. You don't know how hard it was to do that. We could not even do it. It's just you automatically switch and you don't even notice when you switch to English.
Yeah, no, you don't.
Yeah, so we say we want to do it, but we don't know how hard that's going to be because we can't even do it now.
Yeah, no, it is. It is hard because my husband and I tried that with our daughter when she was a little bit younger. She was like 4. I think she had just started preschool. And we're like, you know what? That's at the time that my parents were like, you got to really speak to her in Spanish.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and you know what I say? Just what you said right now. You don't even notice when you're no longer speaking Spanish.
Yeah.
Because my daughter started off speaking Spanish. Like, well, not really speaking it, but when she was, little, she started talking at a really young age. So she was like 10, 11 months, and she would know her numbers in Spanish. She would know her ABCs, and she would know them in English too, but I always taught her in Spanish first until she got to the age of like 2, and then I didn't even notice she didn't speak Spanish anymore.
Oh, yeah.
So then starting school, at 4, we were like, okay, she's going to learn, English in school.
Yeah.
Or not learn it, but she's going to, practice it a lot more. Let's talk to her in Spanish now. No.
It's like harder on you than it is on the kids.
It's so hard. And we didn't even notice when we just wouldn't be speaking to her in Spanish anymore. And honestly, at this point, we're just like, you know what? She'll catch on to it. She's a smart girl.
Yeah.
I strongly believe, they will learn it.
You should probably put that Duolingo for her in Spanish.
That's funny because when I put like YouTube on, I have them like sometimes listen to it in the car, and I will have like the background, it would be like background noise, and I put on like the ABCs or like the 1, 2, 3s, but all in Spanish.
Okay.
And that way they can kind of like know it, because my son, I think Catalina spoke more Spanish than my son.
Yeah.
My son just he has an older sister, and that's all he speaks, English.
Yeah.
So yeah, I usually do that. And I do that with Italian too, just because I'm learning. I'm like, you know what? They're ready for a third language. They don't even know a second one, but they're ready.
That's good.
Yeah, but so it's hard. It's hard, but it's
so worth it.
It's so worth it. And it's definitely an advantage. And it's definitely something that I suggest. I'm really, really happy that I'm able to communicate with my grandparents and my family, in Mexico.
Even if it's all chopped, but yeah.
Even if it's all chopped, but I still think it's really good. I feel like sometimes, we talk about it like as a, family, like with my in-laws or my aunts and uncles, and, they'll be like, she speaks it very well. And I'm like, I do, right? But then when it comes to like, I don't know, I just feel maybe it's the pressure when you're in Mexico, right?
Oh, it's because they speak it at a whole different level.
True. Yeah.
Think about it. That's their only language, and they've pretty much mastered it. Like,
oh yeah,
where they've heard it all, the professional, the slang, like everything, and we only know the basic, know. So it's hard to be at their level.
Yeah, it is.
And they are the ones who notice it even more than we do. Like, just by our accent, they can tell.
Oh yeah.
Even though we don't think we have an accent. But...
I know, because we don't. I don't think I have an accent. I don't think I have an accent in either language. But I mean, you guys are the judge of that.
I know.
At this point, you guys know better than we do.
Yeah, bilingual is a really good advantage.
Yeah, guys, so regardless of the quote unquote language barrier that we believe we had at some point, I think it's an awesome thing to be bilingual, and I'm sure that everyone who's bilingual or trilingual, or
I don't even know what's after that.
Believe and feel the same way.
It's awesome to be able to communicate with multiple people.
And you know what? That's a big thing for me. I feel like I used to work at Chase Bank in like my early 20s. And I remember a lot of people from a lot of different, places would come in, especially at that location. And I would just be fascinated by, their language. And which is why I decided I didn't literally take a Farsi class, but I loved it. And my coworker, she spoke Farsi and Assyrian. And it was just everything. And I learned phrases, and I learned how to, write it or whatnot. I'm not fluent at all, guys. But, I really put so much effort, because it was a little bit of bliss for me to be able to welcome the next customer that spoke Farsi in their language.
Yes.
I loved it. And
not only welcome them, but it makes them feel so much better. It makes you feel so much better when you can communicate with someone.
Yes. Or they feel appreciated, because you want, hey, she learned how to say this in my language, like for me, right? Like,
it's just another connection.
It's
another level of connection.
Yes, it is. And it's awesome. And honestly, that is bliss for me. It's just
another way to get a happy moment in your day.
Yep, definitely. And if you're a people person like I am, I feel like I love pleasing people. I love to, know that I did something for them, whether it's, make them laugh or, just make them feel welcome or help them out in any way. That's just true happiness.
Let us know if you're willing to try to learn a different language, and post it or send us a message on Twitter or
Instagram. And maybe we'll be down to like learn it with you. Oh my gosh, that would be so fun.
And maybe we'll even try to do like an episode in all just Spanish or all just Italian. Oh, Italian, I don't know. That would go pretty badly.
I think it would be very choppy and we would say like random things to each other, but hey.
I would probably just be mentioning pizza toppings.
But I bet our Italian listeners would love it.
I know. All right, catch you guys on the next one. Bliss out.
Bliss out.